we have one consultant from Thoughtworks, that's Nanchen, and she's been working on mobile projects, on scaling up mobile projects with using a platform, and we have with her the mobile tech lead from REA Group, Elisha Lye. So they're going to talk to us about using a platform approach to scale up mobile delivery teams.
Thank you, Scott and Heiko. Thank you very much. I am Elisha Lye. I'm a mobile tech lead from REA Groups. To some of you might know it as realestate.com.au. I have been with REA for almost 7 years. I'm going to get my long service leave very soon. Very exciting. And together with me, we have our co-workers from Xi'an Thoughtworks. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Nanchen from the Thoughtworks China, and I came here twice. It's my second time to be the Melbourne. So I originally work in China. So I'm so excited to be here and do the presentations, Elisha. And hope you guys could enjoy the talk today.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah. So let me start off with the talks. So we are going to talk to you about app as a platform. So as you know that REA, we are actually a digital marketing group focusing on working on property advertisements. And we started off these organizations back in 1995, back in like more than 2 decades ago. And you know that back in 2008 somewhere, Apple came up with a new platform. So this is not the platform that we're talking about, but the platforms of smartphone industry where iOS was introduced. That's where iOS get kicked off. A lot of people are using Apples, and that's where REA gets into developing mobile development platforms in iOS. So, and we also follow on later, Android also came out, Google came out with Android, and that's where we also get into developing Android applications for our business. And fast forward to today, and then we have more apps, like we have Ignite apps and Flatmate apps, which we've developed for REA. And from there, we continue to scale on. So, back to the very, very beginnings, where back in the 2010s, we only have one iOS team and one Android team. And as you know, development's getting more and more. There's more demands for mobile development. So we kind of fast forward to today, we have more than 10x team. And how do we do it? That's going through a lot of some evolutions. And eventually, we get through these 3 evolutions and get to where we are. So talking back on, in terms of that evolutions, we start off with something we call the monolith era, where we have a single teams, everybody works on the same code base, and then later on with second eras, it's called the federated eras. People contributed little codes, and we don't see that as the most efficient era. So we continue to evolve our ways of working, and that's where we talk about app as a platform era, as what Scott talked about. With that, let me introduce you to a little bit of history where we started off. During the monolith era, we developed everything in a code base, like single repositories, just one team developing on it. That time, iOS development, just one iOS development team. And follow on later, Android was introduced. We also have a single team that develops Android teams. There's a lot of Android technologies coming out back then. We hired a few consultants together with us and develop on it and learn a few skills and evolve the code base. From there, it looks good. We are able to support the business from that point of view, but there are a few challenges that we face. First of all, there's this iOS versus Android. There's 2 different, very distinct teams, very different. And then the code, because of a lot of evolution and changes during that time, becomes quite a bit messy. And it becomes a delivery bottleneck because more and more businesses like to get into mobile development. And of course, back then, mobile is still not the first major products, because web platform is the major thing. So it's almost like a byproduct. There's some limitation. That's where we kind of evolved the way of working into what we call the federated era. And these federated eras, right now we restructure by combining the 2 teams, iOS teams and Android teams together, and merge them into something what we call the architecture team, the team that develops the main architects for the mobile development. And we have the one single services that fits into our mobile apps. That's also we call it the BFF, backend for front end. And we also, at the same time, there's another team that's reformed, which between iOS and Android, which is developing all the features that we have. And so we have two teams, feature teams and architecture teams. But we know that there are other businesses who are interested to contribute to our code base. So we also have other teams starting from other places federated into our codes. And there's more teams getting federated into our code. But slowly, as you see, the structure is not very much like in place. So there's a little bit of mess over there, as you see from the diagrams. It's not very ideal. We start to see some problems evolving from that area. And later on, there's also some bottlenecks on our services. So we start to see some of these problems and issues. Nonetheless, when we look into the initial problems that we have in our first era, the monolith era, we do solve all the problems that we have. Unfortunately, the new problems evolve, and there's like, still a single custodianship models where we have also the structure and boundaries not very clear, and also there's a lack of autonomy, people and ownerships. People just federated in the codes, they don't feel the ownership of it. There are various challenges that we have. So with that, we are looking into maybe we should have a better way of developing our mobile development. With that, let me pass on to Nanchen to share with you the next consideration.
Yeah, so thanks for Elisha for taking us through of the previous two eras. And next, I will share you about our app as a platform journey. So in federated area, we already, as Elisha mentioned, we already addressed some issues, but some challenges still remained. If we use one sentence to describe, it's like the multiple team works on one monolithic code base, and with unclear code boundary, and also the functionality and custodianship boundary is unclear. So even we already enabled the federation team independently to deliver their feature, but the cognitive load is pretty so high. Yeah. And this is not only the problem which occurred in mobile space, and every monolithic application will have the same problem. So in the ideal world, the other time where we wanted to be is like each federation team could own their own code base and run their application independently in a separate pipeline and have the autonomy on deciding on the timeline of the respective feature. So during the federation era, so we introduced the release chain, and the architecture team will do the release every week. So the federation team could put their feature under the toggle and deciding the time of the release time, and just release the feature remotely or locally. So this is kind of the achieved our goal of the autonomy on decide on the release timing. And for the rest of the part, we need to change our mobile architecture to address the rest of the issues and to enable every federation team to have team autonomous to deliver their feature by their own. By then, the macro frontend just came into people's sight. So it was raised by Kim Jackson. So from his definition, macro frontend is an architectural style where independently deliverable frontend applications are composed into a greater whole. It sounds like something we wanted to build inside a federation team, try to decouple the monolithic application and to maximize the team autonomous. So based on this MA principle, we were trying to reimagine the application itself and try to distinguish the different rules and responsibility on each part. So ideally, each business should be split into one single macro frontend and owned by a single team. And app itself should become a container to run MFE and also support capability for navigation between MFEs. And for the common capability, it should be initialized in the platform environment and provides all of them to the macro frontend team so they could have the ability to focus on the business details. And for the MFE itself, it should provide the user experience to the consumer and to have such characteristics. So first of all, it's actively maintained. Each macro frontend should be maintained, have the clear custodianship, and performed and prioritized by the custodian team who owns the business. And next is experience-oriented. Every macro frontend should be defined at a screen or page level, not a sub-component in one screen. And also, it should be platform-aligned. It means that each MFE should build on top of the platform and depends on the functionality from platform environment, but shouldn't depend on other macro frontends. And next is about the decoupled. So each MFE should have the ability to do the tech discussion, which is decoupled from central application. But as long as it's utilized with the underlying platform and follow the broader mobile direction. And last is about the independent. So it's quite important. So every macro front end should be testable and buildable without migrating to the central application. So, and it should avoid constant collaboration between the macro federation team and the platform team. And to provide this capability, we need to build something called app as a platform architecture. And we need to think about how to build features inside of the platform, try to enable team autonomous. So in MFE, in the platform itself, we need to build something. So first, it will be better to build some macro front scaffold. So we allowed a macro front-end team to set up new MFE very easily with the CI/CD and an automation test environment, and also with other platform dependencies and etc. And second is about navigation. Navigation is quite important for each MFE. So the macro frontend should have the ability to register themselves as a navigation route, so could enable the navigation between different MFEs. And also with the design kit and the capability kit, design kit is kind of special for the front-end platform. So it aims to provide the components to the every macro front-end team, so they could easily to build up a screen with existing components and also consistent user experience. And also with the capability kit is quite important as well to allow the MFE focus on the business details, don't need to worry about other stuff, such as the analytics and the tracking, same thing, logging and other stuff. And about the detail of how to build app as platform architecture, I will pass to Elisha.
Thank you, Nanchen. So as Nanchen mentioned about concepts of how we are going to develop app as a platform, so I'm going to give you a bit concrete on how we do it at REA. So at REA, so how we initially imagine the whole thing is like, imagine you have Android devices and they provide us an Android SDK, right? Developers from different organizations, they develop their own apps and get into this SDK, using this SDK, and are able to ship into Android devices as a platform. So using the same concept that we have on this Android environment or iOS environment we are building our app as a platform. So where we have the initial high level, we call it the app shells level, which are able to contains all the mini apps that we have. As long as each of them are using the foundations that we have, the design foundations, the capabilities foundation that we have, each team are able to develop single mini apps, and then each of these mini apps are able to be bundled together and shipped together with our main apps and get used as single apps from the user point of view. And we can also test them individually, and we have an internal kind of platform, like kind of app store, like REA store that we have for internal usage and installation, and play with each of them individually. But as whole, we are shipping them as one. So using this concept, if you look into it, we're going to dive into a little bit more detail how we do that. So app as a platform, we have the app shell layer. So what is the app shell layer? So the app shell layers basically provide us the abilities to configure the whole things, and also it's the entry points to the main app. It's the main entry point. Every user just load up the whole thing. And the most important thing that makes this app as a platform different from normal other apps, we do have is something we call the app frame. App frame is where we will house all the apps as well as the routing. So to give you some illustrations, this is like a diagram. So the app frame looks like there's a container, there's places where you can place all your mini applications is. And then we have some sort of like all this micro front end as mentioned by Nanchen, a little small little apps where we can put them together, and we have a routing mechanism or navigation mechanism so you can navigate through them and place them into the locations of your apps and display them. So each of the features are able to display them independently. Of course, we also have some sort of deep link routers where user can deep link into the features and look into which applications to load. And that's how we manage scalabilities in terms of developments independently. And from there, if you look into a little bit more details of these app frames and each of these apps just behave differently. So they have each of the team have the autonomy, and our independents are able to develop the flexibility according to their need. So it doesn't need to compete with each other and conformity. And while they need to kind of sit within the app shell, but they are within themselves, they have this autonomous to design their app structure accordingly. So that's how it works in terms of like provides more flexibility to each of the team. And on top of the navigations and routings that we have on the app shell, the other very important aspect of our app as a platform is what we call the foundations level. In this foundations level, we need to provide something that is very common across all the micro front end that they need. Something that each of the micro front end, if they need, instead of letting them duplicate the functionality, we provide them from the foundations. And then it does have some sort of sensible defaults for the micro front end to use. But at the same time, each of the micro front end are able to customize per their need as well. And lastly, also, we also allow the extensions to be extracted, so you can use for more testing purposes, exploration, expansion of it. So, and within REA, we do have two types of foundation. We have one we call the capabilities, which is something that generate capabilities such as the abilities to do login experiments and also forth. And the other one is we call it the design kit, which is the abilities to like make design very common and very consistent across all the micro front ends. So they makes all the micro front ends consistent and aligned together. So with that, we talked about technology side. What about people sides? How do we manage them? How do we scale them? Let me pass that back to Nanchen.
Yeah, thanks, Elisha. And next, I will walk you through about the team typology. And for the team typology, who is not familiar with, it's a model to describing the organization's development team. It's aimed for people to understand the types of the team and the type of the cooperation. So, as Coislo mentioned, any organization that designs a system will produce a design whose structure is a copy of the organization's communication structure. So understanding the communication across different teams is quite important for us for the future architecture design. So I will use a team typology to try to explain what kind of cooperation style looks like in our daily life. This is the overview of our team typology. So in this diagram, it contains 4 types of the team. First is this stream-aligned team, and in our context, it's also called macro front-end team. Its responsibility is to provide business detail to the consumer to achieve the business goal. And in the bottom layer, including the capability platform and the design platform, it's our platform team. Its responsibility is to reduce the extrinsic cognitive load by providing their services, including the capability service and the design service. And the complicated subsystem is just sit middle of this diagram, including the mobile lead form and the mobile DevOps. So their responsibility is pretty similar, which is also reduce the extraneous cognitive load, but the collaboration style is quite different. So we can use the collaboration or the service in a short period. And in the right-hand side, it's mobile good and it's our enabling team. And its responsibility is to decrease the external cognitive load by facilitating the developers in the company. So in this diagram, I want to highlight the mobile guild because from my perspective, this is the most precious treasure for us. It's aimed to elevate the technical floor and build the ecosystem for the developers. Sorry, not. And yeah, as I mentioned before, so Mobile Guild responsibility is to elevate the technical floor, and everyone could be the champion to help the new starters and other developers to upscaling their skill set. So to achieve this kind of goal, we organized several different types of events. And the first type of events is called capability building. As we mentioned before, we've built lots of platform capabilities. And it's not a thing that we build it and then we can directly use it. We need to onboard developer to get them familiar with all the functionality. So the master class is here to help everyone who want to build micro frontends. And before that, they will need to onboard the platform first, and then make them easier to do the future stuff. And Mobile Bootcamp is for the team who wanted to build native experience, but without native skill set. So they can join Mobile Bootcamp from the zero to learn mobile skill set and to help them easier to get on board. And another type of events, including the Mobile Guild Meetup and Kotlin Secret Dojo and the Mobile Code Review. It opens for every mobile developers, including the Federation team, platform team, and also any other who are interested into the mobile. It's a place for them to share the technical details and do the discussion together. It helps us to grow together and to bring the new technology in the community. And the last but the most important event is our Mobile Dev Day. It's an annual event, and the aim for it is just to let everyone know each other and build a relationship. The reason why it's quite important is because even we work in the different team, in the Federation team, platform team, or mobile DevOps team, but we all work together to contribute one central application. Yeah, so based on all the support from the capability and the platform, and we already scale our mobile teams to 17 teams in total. And also, with Thoughtworks support, REA also set up new teams in China and in India. So in nowadays, all of us bring the best of our distributed team to support our business objects. More than 100 mobile engineers and work together to contribute to the application, which is already existed for more than 10 years, and we still seek for the next adventure. And pass to Elisha for the conclusion.
Thank you, Nanchen. So as you see, the app as a platform does help us to scale our development and to help us to make sure that we continue to invest and explore and expand the teams. So from it, actually, if you look at it, it's not just from an architecture point of view, also from team topological point of view. So when we evaluate from how well has it served us, we're looking at from 3 points. First, in terms of the structure itself, the development scalability. And we are able to scale development much more better in the sense of we have independent teams working on items and we're able to use the platform and scale the works. And the other things nice about this app as platform, while they're using the teams are actually able to deliver independently. So it gives them some sort of flexibility in that sense. And the other point is when we work together with the developer, instead of all of them works on the same code base, because each of them have a good ownership on their own micro front end, it provides a much more better developer experience. They own their codes, and they are able to manage their codes, make sure they have proper custodianships, and make sure the code is well maintained. So that, in that sense, as a developer is pretty happy on working on this model. So nonetheless, there are some challenges that we are facing. So as I mentioned, we have gone through 3 eras. There are still some of the features that from the legacy eras that we still need to manage and need to make sure to transition them over to the new eras of development scale that we have. And the other one is given that the scalability is continuing to grow rapidly, so we need to think of make sure that it scales accordingly, and it's a good problem to have. But nonetheless, it's still important for us to make sure that we manage them properly in the future. And last and not least, also we as you see, we no longer have an iOS team or Android team. We have a very mixture of teams getting together, working as a feature. So there's a very diverse tech stacks that we need to manage and make sure that it works seamlessly across the team. So there's another challenges that we are facing. But overall, so this seems to be very helpful and very good in terms of like developing, making sure that we develop cohesively and have have aligned automations within the team and improve on our productivity in that sense. So with that, that's all that we want to talk today. Thank you very much. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, I will pass it back to you.
We've got a couple of questions.
Yep.
Do the same thing and read them out to you and hopefully interpret them. The first one is about like if you were to do platforms for the first time, like for somebody to approach this from the ground up, like what would be your advice? It's over here.
Yeah. So if we were to approach the platforms for the first time, I can remember that when REA we started off with we have very diverse teams and eventually we became an architecture team. So I would think, as what Scott mentioned, it's very important to get buy-in from the organizations and from the product point of view to make sure that they understand the value and the need to get into platforms. And because for short terms, probably there will be a little bit more investment on those areas. You need to team out the platform teams. But in the longer run, what values does it bring to the feature team? How it does enables the scalability team? So that would be the way I would recommend going forth. The first gotcha is, as we are exploring what's the platforms development we should have, there's a lot of learning what would be called a good platform. How do we architect it? How will you make sure that it is scalable? So there's quite a bit of learning in that sense. That first learning will not always be great. Like we have gone through the 3 eras. The second era was not a platform. It's kind of like we need to scale, we need to build architecture thing, but it's not ideal. So there's going to be some sort of learning before we get into the perfect state, the more ideal stage that we have. Yeah.
Awesome. So the second question is about developer experience. So you've emphasized a lot, like what the developer's experience is and onboarding times. But what other things are there, like that the platform enables you to do? Is there more to it than just improving developer experience?
Yeah, I can answer a little bit about this question because I am the federation team. I earned a lot from platform. So it's not only to improve developer experience, it helps a lot and reduce a lot of time to set up a new MFE. So previously when we start our new feature and with all the CI/CD stuff and the automation environment, usually it will maybe take 1 month. But during that time, we use the scaffold which is provided platform. Then we use the last one week to set up the macro frontends and all the things, including the published application to the app library and do the CI/CD testing in our vendors' testing environment. And that means allows to us reduce lots of coding time for us.
Yeah, makes sense. Next question is about contribution models. And I know that because I wrote that question, so I can ask it directly. So I was curious about how are the teams able to contribute to the platform, or is there like do they need to request a new feature from the platform team, or can they contribute themselves individually, or how does that work?
Yeah, you bring out excellent questions. In fact, the team I work on especially is the platform team, and so happens Nanchen was working on the feature micro front-end team. And in one of the teams, because our team are very limited in terms of development stuff, we need additional platform capabilities. And in that sense, we kind of like offload some of the capabilities for the developer teams to develop them. We let them contribute by initially providing some guidance, what to look for, what to explore, and you make sure that your development is not too specific to your features and that areas. And after providing them some guidelines, and we are able to pair together and understand all the needs and requirements together. And from there, eventually, they are able to contribute to the team. And the nice thing about them contributing, because they know what they need explicitly. And then we just give them some guideline. But at the same time, from us, from platform teams, we do contribute to the feature as well. So it's kind of like eating our own dog food from time to time. So that's cross collaborations is very helpful in the sense of understanding each other, working seamlessly. It's not like platform versus feature. It's platform and feature teams collaborating.
Okay, that sounds great. And the last question is about, well, how do you ensure that everyone's using it, or maybe as an extension, does everyone have to use it, or can people do their own thing?
A very good question as well. This one, in the early days of when platform development was started, there are some challenges where the platform doesn't provide all the capabilities that they need. Some teams have to develop their own solution initially. But over time, as we have the platforms ready in place, we are able to convince and share with them, or get them to get over. Some of it are very good benefits, like we have a more centralized security, much more like provides much more greater flexibility and functionality generics across the team. So when they look at this value, they are able to migrate over. But nonetheless, for teams that already have their own capability, we do understand them. It will require them a little bit of time before they move over. We do work together slowly, and see when there's value, we move over. So there's some exploration. There's some times and there's some grace period as well.
All right. Thank you so much again, both of you, to share your experience in front of everyone. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.